spent lifetimes mistaking your endless mercy for spiritual advancement. You believed that by excusing the inexcusable, by pardoning the unrepentant, by offering grace to those who trample upon your sacred ground, you were ascending some divine ladder of enlightenment. But what if I told you that your compulsive forgiveness was not the mark of an evolved soul, but the symptom of a wounded child still begging for love in the language of self-betrayal? The empathic being doesn't emerge from celestial realms, but from earthly trauma. You are not born sensitive. You are forged in the fires of emotional chaos, shaped by the necessity to read the unreadable, to predict the unpredictable, to survive in environments where love was conditional and safety was earned through hypervigilance. That exquisite sensitivity you carry is not a divine gift, but a survival adaptation, a psychic antenna tuned to detect emotional storms before they destroy what little stability you could create. And so you learned to forgive before you were even wronged, to excuse before you were even accused, to carry responsibility for emotions that were never yours to bear. You became the family therapist at age 7, the relationship counselor in adolescence, the emotional caretaker in every connection that followed. But this was not empathy. This was emotional servitude disguised as compassion. Here lies the cruel paradox. The very mechanism that saved you as a child became the prison that confined you as an adult. Your ability to forgive became weaponized against your own sovereignty. Others learned that you would always make excuses for their cruelty, always find reasons to justify their neglect, always offer understanding when what was needed was accountability. Your forgiveness became their permission to continue harming without consequence. But there comes a moment sacred and terrifying when the soul reaches its limit, not the limit of love, but the limit of lies, when the empathic being can no longer pretend that their endless mercy is healing anyone, least of all themselves. This is the moment when forgiveness transforms from automatic response to conscious choice, when the wounded healer begins to heal their own wounds first. The cessation of compulsive forgiveness is not an act of hardness, but of awakening. It is the moment when you recognize that your mercy has been feeding a dynamic of spiritual vampirism, where your light was being consumed by those who prefer to live in borrowed illumination rather than kindle their own flame. When you stop forgiving reflexively, you stop enabling unconsciously, unmasking the illusion. Let us descend into the symbolic realm where truth speaks in images rather than arguments. You have perhaps dreamed of offering water to figures in desert landscapes, but no matter how much you pour, the thirst is never quenched. Or you have envisioned yourself as a tree whose fruits are constantly harvested, yet no one ever tends to your roots. These dreams are not random. They are your unconscious mind's attempt to show you the unsustainable nature of one-sided spiritual transaction. The archetype operating through your compulsive forgiveness is what I call the eternal pardoner, one who believes their worth is measured by their willingness to absolve others of responsibility for their choices. This archetype emerges from early wounds where love was earned through understanding the ununderstandable, where acceptance meant accepting the unacceptable, where peace was purchased through self-erasure. But when you cease this automatic forgiveness, something profound occurs in the collective unconscious of your relationships. Those who have grown comfortable in your endless mercy suddenly find themselves confronted with the weight of their own actions. The mask they wear of victimhood, of helplessness, of charming manipulation began to slip because the very foundation upon which these performances rest has shifted. Your refusal to continue forgiving what should never have been endured forces others to encounter aspects of themselves they have long avoided. The narcissist must face their emptiness without your energy to fill it. The manipulator must confront their isolation without your warmth to disguise it. The perpetually wounded must meet their responsibility without your sympathy to deflect it. This is where the masks begin their inevitable fall, not through your attack or accusation, but through your absence. Your withdrawal of unconscious participation in their psychological dramas creates a vacuum that their authentic selves must either fill or be consumed by. Many will choose to seek new sources of unconscious forgiveness rather than face this inner work. And this too is valuable information about the true nature of your connection. The psychological mechanism at work here involves what Jung called the return of the repressed. When you stop absorbing and forgiving others' shadow material, that material must find somewhere else to go, typically back to its original owner. The rage they projected onto you returns to them. The responsibility they displace through your forgiveness settles back where it belongs. The accountability they avoided through your understanding becomes unavoidable. Dreams during this transformation often feature imagery of mirrors shattering, masks cracking, or fog lifting to reveal hidden landscapes. These symbols represent the dissolution of illusion, not only the illusions others have maintained about themselves, but the illusions you have maintained about the nature of love, service, and spiritual growth. The sacred, no, and sovereign healing. Your journey beyond compulsive forgiveness requires encountering what I call the sacred no, a refusal that emerges not from anger but from self-respect, not from hatred but from boundaries, not from cruelty but from clarity. This sacred no does not seek to harm others, but refuses to continue harming yourself through endless accommodation of behavior that violates your soul. The transformation begins in the depths of your psyche, in the realm where the wounded child still lives. This inner child has been terrified that saying no to others' demands means being abandoned, that setting boundaries means being unloved, that choosing yourself means being alone. The healing occurs when you can hold this frightened child while simultaneously refusing to let their fears dictate your adult choices. The archetypal shift that occurs when you stop compulsive forgiving is monumental. You move from the wounded healer who bleeds for others to the sovereign healer who demonstrates wholeness. You transition from the eternal mother who absorbs everyone's pain to the wise teacher who reflects reality without distortion. You evolve from the perpetual forgiver to the conscious chooser of when, how, and whom to forgive. This evolution terrifies those who have built their sense of stability upon your predictable mercy. They experience your new discernment as rejection, your boundaries as betrayal, your self-respect as selfishness. But these reactions reveal the truth about the foundation of your previous relationships. They were built upon your willingness to consistently choose others over yourself. The most profound mask that falls is often your own, the mask of the good one, the understanding one, the forgiving one. Beneath this mask lies something far more threatening to systems of unconscious exploitation: authenticity. When you stop performing endless forgiveness, you reveal the suppressed anger, the unacknowledged hurt, the legitimate grievances that your mercy was designed to hide. This authentic self does not forgive to keep the peace, but forgives when the soul is ready. It does not excuse to maintain connection, but speaks truth to honor integrity. It does not absorb others' emotions, but reflects them back for conscious processing. This authenticity is dangerous to those who require your unconsciousness to maintain their comfort. The psychic energy that was previously bound up in compulsive forgiveness becomes available for your own healing and growth. You discover reserves of creativity that were being drained by emotional labor. You find clarity of thought that was clouded by others' projections. You experience vitality that was being siphoned off through unconscious energetic agreements. Dreams begin to shift from scenarios of drowning in others' emotions to images of standing on solid ground, from being chased by unnamed fears to walking purposefully toward distant light, from carrying heavy loads that belong to others to traveling light with only what is truly yours. These dream changes reflect the psyche's recognition that a fundamental rebalancing is occurring. The relationships that survive your transformation into conscious forgiveness are those that were built upon genuine mutual respect rather than unconscious dynamic. These connections deepen as they are freed from the distortions of projection and assumption. You discover what it means to be loved for who you are rather than what you provide. Sacred disruption and authentic connection. Your refusal to continue automatic forgiveness creates what I call sacred disruption, a disturbance in the field of unconscious relationship that forces everyone involved to become more conscious. Some will rise to this invitation and develop greater self-awareness. Others will resist and seek to restore the previous dynamic through manipulation, guilt, or emotional blackmail. The most challenging aspect of this transformation is learning to tolerate others' discomfort with your new boundaries without immediately moving to soothe or fix their distress. Your conditioning to be the emotional regulator makes it almost unbearable to witness pain without intervention. But their discomfort with your growth is not your responsibility. It is their opportunity. As you practice conscious discernment about when and how to forgive, you begin to understand that true forgiveness is not about the other person, but about your own freedom. It is not a gift you give to earn love, but a choice you make to release resentment. It does not require reconciliation, explanation, or even communication. It can occur entirely within your own psyche. The sacred anger that emerges when you stop reflexive forgiving is not the enemy of spiritual growth, but its catalyst. This anger carries information about violated boundaries, unmet needs, and suppressed truth. When consciously integrated, it becomes the fuel for necessary change, rather than the poison of perpetual resentment. Your dreams during this integration often feature imagery of volcanoes erupting, storms clearing the air, or fires burning away dead wood. These symbols represent the necessary destruction that precedes renewal, the clearing that must occur before authentic growth becomes possible. The masks of others continue to fall as they encounter your new unwillingness to participate in unconscious dynamics. The perpetual victim can no longer count on your sympathy to avoid taking responsibility. The emotional manipulator finds their tactics ineffective against your clarity. The spiritual bypasser discovers their avoidance strategies don't work when you refuse to enable them. This unmasking is not your doing, but the natural consequence of your withdrawal from unconscious participation. When you stop absorbing others' disowned material, they must either consciously integrate it or seek new sources of unconscious processing. Many choose the latter, revealing the true nature of their attachment to you. The loneliness that may accompany this transformation is sacred loneliness, the emptiness that exists between the death of false connection and the birth of authentic relationship. This solitude is not punishment, but purification, creating space for connections based on truth rather than trauma, choice rather than compulsion. Dreams during this period often show empty rooms that slowly fill with light, deserted landscapes that gradually bloom with new life, or silence that becomes filled with beautiful music. These images reflect the psyche's recognition that what feels like loss is actually clearing, making room for what truly belongs. Your relationship with forgiveness itself undergoes fundamental transformation. Instead of an automatic response designed to maintain connection at any cost, it becomes a conscious choice made from a place of inner fullness rather than fearful emptiness. You forgive not to keep others, but to free yourself, not to avoid abandonment, but to honor your own healing process. The people who are drawn to you after this transformation are qualitatively different from those who were attracted to your compulsive forgiveness. They come not seeking absolution for unconscious behavior, but authentic connection with a conscious being. They value your boundaries rather than testing them, your truth rather than your accommodation. Your dreams begin to feature images of strong foundations, clear water, unobstructed views. You dream of walking on firm ground rather than shifting sand, of breathing clean air rather than suffocating atmosphere, of seeing clearly rather than through fog. These symbols reflect the psyche's celebration of your movement toward authenticity. True love and intrinsic worth. The most profound mask that falls is the illusion that love requires self-abandonment. You discover that true love, both given and received, actually requires the presence of a self to love and be loved. The emptiness you mistook for selflessness was actually an absence that made genuine intimacy impossible. Your capacity for real empathy paradoxically increases as your compulsive sympathy decreases. When you're no longer lost in others' emotions, you can actually feel with them while maintaining your own center. This mature empathy serves others far more effectively than unconscious absorption ever could. The transformation extends beyond personal relationships into your relationship with systems, institutions, and collective dynamics. You become less willing to enable dysfunctional group patterns, less available for organizational emotional labor that maintains unhealthy cultures, less willing to sacrifice your integrity for false harmony. Dreams may show you standing before institutions crumbling into dust, or walking away from crowds while following a path only you can see. These images represent your liberation from collective expectations that require self-betrayal, your willingness to choose truth over belonging when the two are in conflict. The sacred rage that accompanies this awakening is not directed at others, but at the illusions you previously accepted. You feel anger at the years spent believing that love meant suffering, that kindness required self-erasure, that spiritual growth demanded endless accommodation of others' unconsciousness. This anger, when consciously processed, becomes the foundation for healthy boundaries. It teaches you where your limits are, what you will and will not accept, what serves your growth and what inhibits it. The rage becomes your teacher rather than your tormentor. Your dreams reflect this integration through images of warriors who fight not to destroy but to protect, of mothers who nurture while maintaining strength, of teachers who illuminate while preserving their own light. These archetypes represent the marriage of compassion with discernment that characterizes conscious empathy. The final masks to fall are often the most subtle, the belief that you can heal others through your pain, that your suffering serves some cosmic purpose, that martyrdom is a form of service. These spiritual illusions are perhaps the most difficult to release because they feel so noble, so selfless, so aligned with religious and cultural conditioning. But when these last illusions dissolve, you discover something remarkable, your authentic power. Not the power over others, but the power to choose your response to life circumstances. Not the power to control outcomes, but the power to maintain your integrity, regardless of external pressure. This power does not seek to dominate or manipulate, it simply exists quietly and unshakably. Others feel it in your presence even when you say nothing. They sense that you can no longer be moved by guilt, swayed by manipulation, or controlled through emotional pressure. This energy is simultaneously comforting to those who seek truth and threatening to those who depend on illusion. Your dreams begin to feature imagery of sovereignty, thrones, crowns, scepters, not as symbols of dominance over others, but of mastery over yourself. You dream of ruling kingdoms that represent your own inner landscape, finally governed by wisdom rather than fear. The relationships that form in this new consciousness are characterized by what I call conscious love, affection that honors both self and other, care that includes appropriate boundaries, support that does not enable dependence. These connections feel different in your body, lighter, cleaner, more sustainable. You discover that forgiveness, when it comes from this centered place, is actually more powerful than when it was compulsive. Because it is chosen rather than automatic, it carries real healing energy. Because it comes from fullness rather than emptiness, it actually nourishes rather than depletes. The most profound realization is that your worthiness was never dependent on your willingness to forgive. Your value does not increase with your tolerance for mistreatment. Your spiritual development is not measured by your capacity to excuse the inexcusable. You are inherently worthy of respect, care, and consideration, not because you earn it through endless giving, but because you exist. This recognition transforms everything. Your relationships, your work, your relationship with yourself, all shift to reflect this fundamental understanding of your intrinsic worth. You stop auditioning for love and start allowing authentic connection to find you. The dreams that mark this final integration often feature images of coming home, not to a physical place, but to yourself. You dream of recognizing your own face in the mirror, of hearing your own voice speaking truth, of feeling perfectly comfortable in your own skin. A new path for the empath. The empath who stops compulsive forgiving becomes something new. A conscious being who chooses when, how, and whom to serve based on wisdom rather than wounding, clarity rather than conditioning, self-respect rather than self-abandonment. This evolution serves not only your own healing but the healing of the collective, demonstrating the true service flows from wholeness rather than brokenness. And in this wholeness, the masks don't just fall from others, they fall from existence itself. You begin to see clearly through the veils of illusion that keep humanity trapped in cycles of unconscious wounding. Your clarity becomes a gift to the world. Your boundaries a teaching. Your self-respect an invitation for others to discover their own worth. This is the true spiritual path. Not the endless forgiveness of those who refuse to grow, but the conscious choice to honor truth, maintain integrity, and serve from a place of authentic power rather than unconscious compliance. When you walk this path, every step is sacred, every choice is conscious, and every relationship becomes an opportunity for mutual awakening rather than unconscious exploitation. The masks fall not as punishment, but as liberation, freeing everyone involved to discover who they really are beneath the roles, defenses and pretenses that keep them separate from their own souls. And in this revelation, the possibility of genuine love, authentic connection, and conscious evolution finally becomes real.